Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. I've been asked to review this book, which is slightly out of the ordinary for me, but I decided I would because I read the book and I found it quite interesting. It's called Bitter Eden. It's a novel, and it's been written by Tatamkhulu Afrika. I'll explain a little bit about who he was in a moment. The book's now published by Blue Mark Books Limited. And I've given the title of our review the following: A Different Approach to a War Story for the 21st century. One which probably would have been ignored 70 years ago. I'm pretty certain it would have done. Let me show you the book first of all. It's a POW book, basically. There's the front cover, there's the spine, and then there's the back. In the inside cover there's some information about the writer. He died in 2002. I'm recording this book in review in 2017, so it's some years after, it's 15 years after his death. There's the inside dust cover there. The book itself runs to 230 pages. It's a novel. You can see body copy all the way through. It reads well. There is the front page. And there's a note from the publisher which explains why he's decided to publish it now. Toby Fountain in November 2016. He's taken it over. Do read the actual comments. Then there's an actual dedication there. And then you've got the book itself. It's an important book, and I'll explain why. Because it's dealing with issues that we don't normally talk about, but it's one that I do think is worth, certainly in the 21st century, considering, because of our different approaches to the way things are today concerning this particular subject matter. Now, a passable oxymoron like a bitter Eden is always a great eye-catcher for a story title, although we don't know what service personnel 70 years ago would make of a book today, if truth be told, because social attitudes have actually changed so much, which I think is to be welcomed. There's a debate if Eden is or ever was bitter, because, of course, originally it wasn't, but we all know who caused it to become that way later, don't we? If we believe all the stories. But that's the title of the book, and Bitter Eden is a courageous war story, there's no doubt about it. It's a prisoner of war memoir with a difference, and was published originally in 2002 by a writer using the name Tatamkhulu Afrika. His real name was Ismail Joubert. He was born in 1920 and he died in 2002. And he revisited his experiences as an Allied POW in World War II in this novel called Bitter Eden, which is being republished now by Blue Mark as a novel, although the work is clearly autobiographical, as they nearly always are in these circumstances. And in the story, Afrika lays bare the terrible cruelties endured and the strange loyalties and deep bonds that men know will never be replicated after the war. For many, of course, Bitter Eden will be unnerving and difficult to read, but it is a further contribution to the modern war story with the last undiscussed area, same-sex relationships in war. It's a very difficult area. It's uncomfortable for many people. You have relationships when you've been in the armed forces, I certainly did, and you have bonds. This is slightly different. Bitter Eden has been described as a tender, bitter, powerful story of lives inexorably changed, of a war whose ending does not bring peace. Well, frankly, I don't think a war does bring peace to many people who are participants in any event. Thus, it's classified as a modern and contemporary fiction. But there's a lot more to it than that. The book describes the complex rituals of camp life and the diversion of the POW theatre. More than simply war or gay literature, in my view. It's a deeply moving human work about the meaning of love and what it is to be a man. And a lot of people won't like it, but it will keep quiet, and will keep quiet though, of course, because they couldn't possibly admit having such emotions themselves. But they come out in different ways with every human being. It's a change then from the accepted war books of the past, but not a story for some, including most of the people I've served with who had fought in the Second World War, or more recent conflicts, and who would not countenance this sort of story for a minute. But times have changed, and I think attitudes have changed a lot, because there is an interesting relationship when it is brought about by the trauma of the battlefield, if I can put it that way. Let me just explain who the author was. Afrika was born Mogammed Foussad Nassif in Egypt to an Egyptian father and Turkish mother, and he arrived in South Africa as a very young child. Both his parents died of flu, and Afrika was fostered by family friends under the name of John Charlton. He fought in the Second War in the North African campaign, so he was a brave man. He was captured at Tobruk and imprisoned. After the war, he left his foster family and went to Namibia, where he was fostered by an Afrikaans family, taking his third legal name of Ismail Joubert. Then he converted to Islam in 1964, legally becoming known as Ismail Joubert, and lived in Cape Town's District 6, which was a mixed-race inner-city community. District 6 was declared a whites-only area in the 60s, and the community was destroyed. See how devastating those appalling policies were. Now, with an Arab father and a Turkish mother, Afrika could have been classified as a white, but refused as a matter of principle, and good on him is all I can say. Tremendous difficulties he would face, but that's the way it is. He founded Al-Jihad to oppose the destruction of District 6 and apartheid in general, and when this affiliated with the ANC, that's the armed wing, he was given the praise name of Tatamkhulu Afrika, which he adopted until he died, hence the name used for the novel. Now, I'm not going to get into ANC politics at all, but you will be aware that in 1987 he was arrested for terrorism, banned from speaking or writing in public for 5 years, although he continued writing as Afrika, and he was imprisoned for 11 years in the same prison as Mandela, and he was released in 1992. Now, he died on the 23rd of December 2002, shortly after his 82nd birthday, and he died sadly from injuries received when he was run over by a car 2 weeks before, just after the publication of his final novel, which is this book here, Bitter Eden. I'm not going to give you spoilers on this because I think you should read it for yourself. It's now being republished by Toby. And now he left us this important memoir, plus his autobiography, 2 novels, 4 short stories, 2 plays and poetry, and some unpublished work, which we hope sets the scene behind the book. I think what he's tried to do is to bring out his own particular feelings, and it has a place in history, and certainly in the history of literature like any other, and therefore there's no criticism at all of it. As I say, some people will find it uncomfortable. Let me conclude by saying that with the above background to assist, we feel the reader will have some understanding of the struggles within the novelist. I think that's quite important from a psychological point of view, as he puts his important points across. Same-sex relationships were not simply just not discussed during Afrika's early life, with many having no understanding at all of what such a physical relationship was all about. And that was the way it was, and it may be difficult for people today to understand that, but that is exactly the way it was, and things just weren't discussed. How things have changed. I think Bitter Eden set some of the last records straight, if I can use that expression, and we are, I think, better for it, because it, I hope, gives a better understanding of where everybody is within the human race. Now, the publication date, as I say, was given at 2002, and this is being republished the end of 2016, early part of 2017. There it is again. It's a nice little book. It's well presented, and I thought it was very well written. There's a lot of emotion in it. There's a lot of feeling in it, and as I say, it's not necessarily everybody's cup of reading, if I can put it that way. But I wanted to review them because I was asked to do so, and I have done so. But I think it is making us move forward to another time in our history where things hopefully may be different for all. Thank you anyway to Toby and to the late Tatamkhulu Afrika very much indeed for this worthy book. Bye bye.